When a mid-century house was updated in the 1990s, you can tell at a glance. Teal formica, black granite, honey oak cabinets. Even if they did a good job with it, it does a mid-century ranch no favors. It's time to refresh that house with mid-century details, bring it back to its former glory, or maybe make it a little more chic than it ever was. If that's the story of your house too, you are not alone. As a residential architect who specializes in mid-century homes, it seems like at least half the projects I work on took a beating, with trendy updates in the 80s, 90s, or 2000s that have not lasted. While this kind of remodel isn't exactly the same as a bad recent flip, which often also includes shoddy workmanship we need to be aware of, we're going to handle it in the same way. My approach to a house like this is to multitask. We're finding options to personalize and perfect the house for the new owner, while we remove those time-stamped out-of-period details and bring back in as many mid-century materials and details as we can. In this week's case study house, we're going to talk about defining spaces with built-in details and mid-century elements like screen walls, rearranging spaces to both modernize and personalize it to the owner's life, thinking about the design for a house that is for one person who hosts a lot of groups, solving a kitchen that has already been remodeled once, and reworking a classic 90s hot tub edition into a fabulous owner suite. I'm going to share specific examples and then some universal strategies that you can apply if any of those sound like your problems. Here's the house, a late mid-century gem. It's a generously laid out 3-bedroom ranch with flowing social spaces and a walkout daylight basement built into a hill. A real beauty, both from the perspective of structure and from its location. It looks out over oak trees and then beyond into the UW Arboretum. It's really amazing. Less amazing was the 90s remodel. I'm going to go out on a limb and assume no designer was involved in this process because while the quality of all the pieces was good, their layout makes no sense. There's a too narrow island, a death trap spiral staircase, and then the hot tub addition, plunked onto the back of the house gracelessly. In the basement, they turned what had been a simple powder room into a 3/4 bath by putting a locker room style tiled shower onto this best bathroom with no sink or toilet in the vicinity. Still, it's got a lot of potential. I met the new owner over Zoom and we looked at the listing photos remotely, me from across town here in Madison and her from California, where she was camped out in a temporary apartment after her home was destroyed in the Eaton fire last January. I care about every client and I do my best for every mid-century home, but I have to admit I took the responsibility of helping someone who'd gone through that kind of loss recreate a home from scratch very seriously. The rest of her story is hers to tell. She's wonderful, and this project is wonderful. I might have her on the podcast to tell her own version of this. For now, let's focus on the house itself. We had a beautiful process of reimagining it together, a really nice return from a tragic beginning. Let's start as we come in the front door. This house has a double door and window entry area, light-filled, and it looks straight through onto an incredible view, but it felt a little undifferentiated, especially as this entry is a crossroads space, which gives you entry into living room, but also across the other direction, kitchen, going into the bedroom wing. This is an important area, and we wanted to define it a little bit more. So here are 3 ways to break up the space and plan. None of them narrowing it to a doorway, but just giving it a bit more of a definition and a bit more of a sense of privacy and separation between the entry and the comfortable casual living space beyond. In one version, we've got a storage block in lieu of front hall closet and then a slat wall. This version has more of a built-in bench with still a wall behind it. And in a third way, we've got a floating sort of drop zone for a few little things to reduce the possibility for clutter and privacy wall beyond. We ended up developing the space a little bit further, even beyond the master plan schemes. Here's the final choice of how it turned out. Storage, seating, and the privacy wall. It's gorgeous. Zooming out from the entry into the sort of whole social space area, this house needed some reworking. I would imagine in the original design, this was more of a closed-off kitchen with an eating area and then dining and living room flowing together and looking out towards the view at the back. The 90s remodel has this sort of long, awkward island with a cooktop right in the middle of it, so everything feels a bit unsafe to set things there. Still, our Scheme 1 option is close to this because this was a remodel that needed to happen fast. We wanted the potential for it to be easy. So in this layout, we keep an elongated island with a little bit more depth and anchor it with a cozy built-in space. So now there's somewhere to linger in this kitchen. There is a social space within the kitchen itself, one that looks out towards the backyard view. In Scheme 2, we shift that eat-in area into the dining space, which you can see here in the whole house scheme. In the kitchen space itself, there's room for a more modern double-sided island. Plus, we flip the cooktop to the back wall and the sink into the island. I've always found this to be a more comfortable way to have people sit around, rather than sitting next to an open plane, or even if you're using an induction stove, a potentially very hot surface right next to where people's hands and stuff can go. In the third scheme, we change up access to the deck, closing off what had been the slider and shifting that into the dining room, so we've got a cozy dining nook right up against the view out to the backyard. Oak trees. Rotating the island lets it feel wider, creates a little bit of a definition from the garage door entry over here, and makes a connection between the island and the dining room beyond it. In the end, we pulled ideas from each of these three schemes. The footprint looks closer to Scheme 1. It's a modest amount of changes, but we explored a deeper island, did flip the cooktop and sink, as in Scheme 2, and we pulled in the curvature from Scheme 3, which is a fun design element that, as I hear from the owner, is now the first thing that everybody that comes into the space remarks on. But it's not just a pretty detail, it also softens a hip-banging corner where you walk through in the tight space between the pantry storage here and the island beyond it. After the kitchen, the next most important space to rework was the bedroom wing, and specifically the owner's bedroom. This is a space for one person to really enjoy living in her house, and right now, I cannot convey to you enough how unluxurious the 90s hot tub space felt. Even though there's some great concepts baked into this room. Elevated ceiling and skylights, wood on the ceiling, in fact, as well. All of those were things we kept intact. But just a hot tub tucked into a corner of a room with a mirrored wall and a window giving a view that someone on the deck in the back could see in, all of that felt very awkward and uncomfortable, and so was the connection between the hot tub room and the bedroom itself. There was also an adorable time capsule bathroom tucked back in near the original owner's bathroom of the house, but it was so cut off from daylight and so awkward and small that we ended up pretty much erasing it in every version. Our three schemes for this area really play with where the major spaces should go. In each case, we're kind of shifting the closet, the bathroom, and the bedroom around each other and testing which one most deserves the space with the best view and which one wants to feel more cozy and private, and how three different uses can share what is fundamentally a tripart space, a closed inner part, a sort of protected house corner, and then the backyard addition surrounded by windows on three sides. In Scheme 1, we reclaimed the original bathroom for a laundry brought up to the main floor. Why one person alone would take all of their clothes out of their closet all the way down to the far corner of the basement and then all the way back up again when she could just put it in right here doesn't make sense. So laundry coming to the main floor was a default option in every case. And while putting laundry into the owner's closet is a choice I don't recommend for families with small kids, it's a great choice for someone who is managing their life alone, and the clothes never really have to cycle out of this space. Alternately, we could move the bedroom back to that space, give it a forest-like view, and then have the existing bedroom space function as a sort of a walk-in dressing area, and put a skylight in to bring daylight into the existing bathroom in its original footprint. Or a third variation reorients the bed to a different wall and shifts some spaces around for a different feeling of the bathroom. Here are how those three bathrooms worked out, like this, and like this. And in each of the bedroom schemes, you can see how different headboard concepts, different built-ins, different amounts of headroom where the ceiling height pops up in Scheme 2, and then in Scheme 3 where there's more of a wooded, dark, cozy feeling around the entire bed really make a difference. Speaking of bathrooms, the shared bathroom on the main floor also deserved being rescued from the 1990s. So here's what we suggested for a minimalist, modern approach to mid-century details for that space and a nice material palette for it as well. Oh, and we did not forget about the basement. Here it is set up with a slat wall that calls back to the entry slat wall as you come down it. And instead of keeping a divided powder room and shower chamber, we built a full 3/4 bathroom, which fit inside the footprint of that original shower almost effectively. And now we've got a nice space where long-term guests can come visit from California, for example, and stay for a while without impinging on each other's privacy. There's room to have different sleep schedules and still a lot of wonderful togetherness time in this space. The basement central area is also perfectly fitted out for game day. So if you're dealing with a house like this, one that needs a major refresh on some of its core areas, owner's bedroom and bathroom, kitchen, downstairs built-ins, there's an opportunity to rearrange spaces in a significant way. While there's some logic to keeping plumbing fixtures where they are, sometimes if the layout isn't working at all, it's time now to refresh a space, especially if you are doing a second touch remodel. Someone has already come in and made somewhat logical for the original house changes. Don't feel too tied in to just continuing to tweak off the original layout. Make sure you're thinking about big moves as well as small ones, even if what you're going to end up doing is ruling them out. Part of what this particular example shows is the power of the master plan process sometimes to do something completely different from what was originally imagined, and sometimes to just focus and narrow in on the original homeowner's view. For example, this owner's bedroom turned out very close to what she described to me in our initial meeting, and that's great. We studied other options to make sure there wasn't anything better we could do, and we did pull in a few detail pieces from those other designs, but this was a focusing process, not a complete pivot. On the other hand, in the kitchen and in the basement, we made more dramatic layout changes, and that was because we explored possibilities and then weighed the various pros and cons. As always, the master plan A master plan doesn't require you to do the most everywhere or the least everywhere. It allows you to kind of balance the scales, putting more energy into the rooms that matter the most to you and less into spaces that are either close to what you want already or just not as important in general. When you're taking a house from the 90s forward to now in 2026, but also tying back to the original build date of the house in the 50s, the 60s, or in this case, the mid-70s, details make the difference. We had license to go with a darker and oak-based woodwork rather than the sort of amber shellac pine that would have been more common for a 1950s era house. This also matched the owner's personal taste. But pulling the detail together where the kitchen built-ins speak to the entries in the entry, the kitchen built-ins speak to the entry, speak to the entertainment unit. All of these spaces are places that have view-through connections. So if you stand in one and look across a doorway, through a hallway, or walk around a corner, you see those connecting spaces. It's important, though, to match woodwork and built-in details, even if you can't see two things at the same time. For example, as you enter, you see a slat wall. And if you were coming into this house and coming downstairs to watch a game in the basement, you'd then walk out of sight of the original entry slats and down the stairs past another slat wall that calls back that same detail. That kind of work really gets to the flow state of a mid-century house, that you can remember and hold with you details that feel consistent from one room to another, even if they're separated. So we see them in her office, we see them in her owner's bedroom and bathroom detailing. The same kind of woodwork and detailing happen throughout. The end result is cohesive and coherent, and it feels connected to the original date of the house rather than something that's so trendy right now that it's going to feel immediately date stamped going 10 years into the future. This, hopefully, is a remodel that will be able to last beyond the 20-year timeline of the last one and feel perfect for this owner as long as she's in the house, and possibly appealing to the next owner as well. Next week, I'm going to take a break from case study projects and just talk about the master plan process itself. I want to break it down for you because, kids, you can try this at home. I want you to think about any project you approach, from something as small as replacing a light fixture to something as big as taking on a whole house remodel with master plan thinking. I'll walk you through the steps next week. Meanwhile, if you are looking for help to think about design options, check out the design services that MidMod Midwest offers right here. And if you want to know more about it, reach out and let's have a conversation about what's possible for you and for your mid-century house.